Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with a quick video. I've recently been playing Dead Space 2 and I thought I would put a little bit of a guide together about the upgrade path that I like to use and how I got through hardcore. Just doing a quick recap for Dead Space veterans because I've been playing it again recently. So the first thing you have to watch out for in hardcore is if you have the Dead Space saves on your hard drive or your cloud or anything. If you're on Xbox One, you can get a refurbished plasma cutter, and this means you can carry two of the same. It's quite useful because it just means it saves your reload. When you're fighting the tripod here, you can just run around the edge and run around this stanchion in the corner, in the middle of the area, and just keep stationing it and shooting its limbs, and then when you've used both of your stasis shots, make a break for the stasis recharge. When you get to the first bench, I like to sell pretty much absolutely everything as soon as you've got the power node and you get the power node schematic. Sell things and get as many nodes as you can. Hardcore's all about surviving, so first things first, upgrade the first 3 nodes on the HP on your rig, and then you need at least 4 nodes to be able to put 2 damage increase on the plasma cutter. This makes a really big difference because there are some tricky bits like the train in chapter 2 and the laundry room, and you just need to get through those, and they make a really big difference. If you can afford another 2 nodes, you can put them in another capacity and damage, and so you can have 3 damage upgrades, and if you've lost any health to that point, then it'll also fill your health like so just there. This laundry room is a pain in the neck. Smash all of the windows and make sure that you've got all these shards that come out of them, and you can use those with kinesis to save yourself some bullets and do some good damage. As soon as you make a run for the door, it locks you in, and depending on where you stood, the enemies can fall in, always in the same order, but they can fall in through different vents or different sort of spawn points, so you have to be careful with that. Be really careful because there's a leaper and a puker in here, so like you have to be really careful taking both those out because they can be extremely dangerous. So just use the shards, try and save yourself some ammo, and when you need to reload you can just use the refurb plasma cutter and switch to the regular one, and that'll save you a bit of time. And they're only regular necromorphs, so even if you get hit with the little bit of damage upgrade you've put in there, you should be fine. Like I just took a hit there. If you take any damage on hardcore, just make sure that you're carrying a couple of health packs at all times, and then you heal up as soon as you take any damage. So just try and use the limbs and save some ammo wherever you can, and the damage in the plasma cutter really helps. If you're fighting any pukers at any point, just back up and try and catch the spit. It kills them in one shot, it kills them from a safe distance, and it saves you some ammo. Now you can also use the pulse rifle instead of the plasma cutter. I would never recommend having them both because they're both quite weak weapons and they're a bit redundant, but they're good for like standard enemies, so I'd only carry one of those. There's no point having both of them together. Now if you have the plasma cutter and you've upgraded it, it makes this train part a lot easier. If you can get through this without having any damage upgrades on it, then you could just use the plasma cutter up to this point and then save those nodes by the pulse rifle from the next door after fighting the pack, and then upgrade it instead. Just be careful here, it is easier if you have got those damage upgrades, which is why I prefer the plasma cutter to the pulse rifle on a hardcore playthrough. Notice here that I run out of bullets on the refurb plasma cutter and I switch to the other one, and the reason I do that is because when the brute comes you get a free reload. So you see here I take out these and I switch to the empty refurb plasma cutter, and all of a sudden it's magically got 10 bullets in, so that saves you ammo, gets you a free reload. So whatever weapons you're using, if you've got one of them empty at the time that the brute comes up, then you will get that free reload. There's also a power node in this room at the far back right, and there's another power node in the corner as you are leaving this room in the corridor. There's a power node in that corridor, so there's 2 in total in that area. Make sure you get those. And make sure you pick up all of the pickups through the game. There's a few hidden ones, like that is a circuit board there, and a little difficult to get pick up there for a little bit of credits, so make sure you're trying to pick all those up because you want to maximise and get as much nodes as you can. Try to avoid buying any health packs or anything like that, just use what the game gives you. Sell the excess if you feel like you can get it, If you're fighting any pack, you can use their bodies to like throw the bodies of the pack at other enemies, and that slows them down. And if you throw one dead pack into a running live pack, it will kill him, and the body of the dead pack will also drop ammo there. That's quite good. Don't be afraid to use excess ammo to shoot the bodies of the pack before they disappear though, because the ammo pickup or the credits that you get will normally be better than saving yourself 1 bullet to not spawn the drop. Skipping ahead to chapter 4, just be careful with the lurkers when they're running at you. They can be quite dangerous. And my favourite weapon to get is to sell the refurb plasma cutter, so I've just got one plasma cutter and buy the Ripper at chapter 5. If you fancy an early save, just to take a bit of the tension out and give you a point to go back to, that can be a good idea as well. So if you feel like doing that, this area, the bench and store right after you get the Ripper, this room is a decent point for your first save, if you don't feel like taking on the Tormentor without a save point. So I have bought the security suit for 20,000 in chapter 4. And just save up as many nodes as I could for the Ripper. Ideally you want to get at least that first damage node and hopefully that first duration node, which is 4 nodes. You'd then be making your way up the top to that capacity and damage node. So if you've got the extra 2, you want to put them in the reload and the duration there. So you have the 2 duration upgrade straight away, so it maximises the ammo that you get for the Ripper. Again, you try not to buy Ripper ammo, you use it in conjunction with the plasma cutter and just max out the other capacity and damage on the plasma cutter. It only takes 8 nodes in total to max the damage on the plasma cutter, which is why it's really good. And later in the guide I'll be showing that how in part 2 I tend to respec the plasma cutter for a more powerful weapon halfway through the game. So you can just keep putting nodes into that with the plan on respecing them later. The Ripper's really good. If you have those duration upgrades, the saws last for a really long time, and with the 1 damage upgrade at the start as well, it does a lot of damage. So that was 1 blade taking out 3 enemies, and that is not uncommon when you have like a lot in close range. At each stage of this Tormentor fight, where the Tormentor comes after you, you see here that the Ripper is actually empty, and I deliberately left it empty after the church part, where the pack come. Because at each stage of the Tormentor fight you get a free refill of ammo again, so you have to shoot it 4 times in the arms as it repeatedly tries to grab you, and between each one of those you will get a free ammo refill in whatever gun you're carrying. So you can refill all 4 of your guns if you wanted, if you could be bothered switching about. It's not really worth doing on hardcore, but this is the 5th and last free ammo refill you got. So I don't know if you noticed there, but the Ripper was full when I aimed at the Tormentor there, and I switched back to the plasma cutter to shoot it. And that's quite a useful trick, and that's going to have got me 8 free Ripper blades here, because as you'll see it was completely empty, and then when I aim it'll now be full again. Now when I was doing my actual proper hardcore run I did it without DLC. It's extremely easy with the DLC weapons, so it's not really worth doing. So if you fancy the challenge, which is the main reason to do it, this is where I would recommend making a save. You can go further on if you want, but this was my first early save in chapter 6, because this room has 6 leapers and 3 pregnants in it, and it can be quite difficult. So I made my first save there when I was doing it properly. Now you kill the first pregnant and then you head back towards this area and just try and make sure that you don't hit them anywhere other than the limbs. The bottom limbs is a good place to shoot, and you see there I just messed it up. So if you do mess it up you can use the Ripper or line gun or whatever if you've got a secondary line mine or whatever weapon you've got at the time. And the reason I love getting the Ripper instead of waiting to get the flamethrower is because you have the Ripper for this room, and it's extremely effective because you can just set a Ripper blade going and then the leapers will run around the corner into it and they can't jump and hit you. And you can do this with all 6 of the leapers and it's quite safe. You can also kill a pregnant without spawning the babies as well, by hitting them in the arms. Now this is the room where you have to take out the oxygen, and this is actually the side where you come into the room. So as you come into the room, look above and there is a gap on the first floor, and there's a hidden node there that's quite hard to get, so just make sure you look out for that one. This is another key sort of benchmark, pardon the pun, for upgrading your weapons. So this bench here, after I've cleared out that room and everything else and collected the power nodes, come back to the bench to do upgrades. Now what I'll be aiming for here is you can either use 4 or 5 nodes to get the 2 damage and the capacity on the right there, but what's actually better is to go up and get the capacity and the damage at the top middle row. And here I'm just showing if you have some extra nodes you can get the damage and the capacity on that side instead, but long term it's probably better just to get the capacity and damage at the top middle. Here's where you can start boosting your stasis, and you can put a bit more into the plasma cutter and just finish off some of the upgrades there. Again, I'll be planning to respec it later, so I'll show you that if I'm doing part 2 of this little video. So at the school you want to make sure that you've got all of your weapons reloaded. There's quite a few pack and a couple of the little exploding babies, as well as you also have one of the infectors which can turn the corpses into black necros as well, so you have to be very careful. Just try and take out the exploding babies first. You'll see here that I get a little bit careless with the Ripper. If you keep your distance, these things should never get close to you, but I got a bit lazy and one of them hits me. And even if that's the case, you still have time to put up another blade and very quickly make mincemeat out of the pack, and the Ripper's brilliant for them because it also makes them drop tons of ammo as well. Another 4 come after that. So on to part 2. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.